The most succinct way of talking about things is to say that there are only two situations that we can be in. And one situation is the open situation, and the other situation is the closed one, the closed situation. And as a further refinement, we'd have to point out that there's actually no such thing as a closed situation, but that we can imagine that there is. We can pretend that there's a closed situation. And in fact, that's what we do. We pretend very well indeed, superlatively well, that there is a closed situation. We're fantastically good at pretending and believing in, more importantly. We pretend it and we straight away believe it, that there is such a thing as a closed situation, that there is a closed situation, and that that's the only situation there could be, various types of closed situations. And from our viewpoint, which sometimes is called the conditioned viewpoint, if you're into that kind of language, we feel that there's lots and lots of different possibilities within the closed situation. That isn't actually true. That's what you could call apparent or hallucinatory diversity. There isn't actually lots and lots of possibilities within the closed situation, or lots of types of closed situation. There's only one. There's only the closed situation, and there's nothing more than we can say about it than that. It's a closed situation. As James Carse would say, it's a finite game. It's a kind of a routine that we go through. We go through the routine, and because there's only the routine, we'll always be coming back to the beginning and going through it again. Probably imagining that we are getting somewhere, but within the closed situation, there's nowhere to get because it's closed. It is what it is. It is what it says on the label. There's nothing else, so we never escape from it. So the closed situation is a situation we can never escape from. But it isn't really a situation. We just think that it is. So if we go back a little bit to the original statement that provisionally there are two situations that we could be in. So regarding the open situation, speaking from a psychological point of view, we could say that we don't like it. Or we could say that we're mortally afraid of it, that it is the greatest terror known. It's the big terror. Terror with a capital T, fear with a capital F. So it's ontological terror. It's the thing that we're so frightened of we never even think about it. So in one way we could say that the reason we don't like it, which is a very mild way of putting it, but to start off in using that particular term, because the open situation, even though we can't say anything about it because it's not susceptible to any final definition or any type of definition at all, what we can say about it with absolute surety, it is possible to have a type of certainty or surety in the open universe, as long as it's negative certainty, of course. The one thing that we really can be sure of is that the open situation will always upset the apple cart. So whatever type of apple cart we've got, and we've all got some kind of apple cart, some type of apple cart. Some of us might have this in it. Some of us might have some other stuff in it. But that doesn't matter. The important thing is that the open situation will sooner or later upset it, tip tip it over so the apples go all over the shop. Now, the reason the apple cart will be tipped over is because in an open situation, there's always new stuff to be learned. There's always new ways of looking at the world. So whatever way we have of understanding things, it's strictly provisional. It's provisional. It's in relation to the assumptions that we've made. And assumptions are kind of like lines in the sand that we draw and think, well, we're going to pretend that this is all there is to it, and then see where we get on that basis. And we'll pretend that this is demarked domain that I've created by drawing lines in the sand is the whole of anything. And we need to do that in order to play finite games, in order to know anything about anything, in order to have any type of possibility of purposeful activity. We need to do that. And that's fine. So we do this thing. We draw the lines and we say, well, we're going to assume that this is all it is, basically. Which again is fine. It's like a thought experiment. It's like, well, let's see what it's like if we just make these 3 or 4 or 5 basic assumptions. Let's run that simulation, see what happens. That's perfectly okay to do that. That's what we do. But the thing is, that no matter what it is, no matter what type of positive knowledge, or as we could also say, whatever type of power we have within that situation to be in control to some extent, maybe a bit, maybe a lot, that's going to be lost in a flash, sooner or later, for the simple reason that the cut-off point we settled upon, the line in the sand, isn't really there. So it's like I'm in the Sahara Desert and I've drawn this nice, neat little circle or whatever it is. Could be a triangle or a box, square. So yeah, this is fine. This is okay. This is my finite game. But the thing is, the Sahara Desert continues much further on than the lines I've drawn in the sand. So there's my lines, and the Sahara Desert, let us say, continues for thousands of miles in each direction. So it's a lot bigger than at the moment I want to kind of relate to or acknowledge. It's a lot bigger. It's kind of like standing outside in the middle of the night on a cloudless night and looking up at all the stars. So at such moments we know that the universe is a lot bigger than we would normally give it credit for. So in our day-to-day activities, the stuff we have to think about, we don't dwell on this. It's kind of inconvenient in a way, in a funny kind of a way, because as you could imagine, if we brought in this picture of vastness in which we are directly aware that the universe is incalculably bigger than we could ever understand it to be, that would dwarf all of our concerns. And we don't want to have our concerns dwarfed. We'd want to have our concerns not to be totally become totally irrelevant. Because if I got a concern and it hasn't been dwarfed, I can get entertainment out of that concern. I can get pleasure out of it. I can, on the one hand, I can work away trying to realize things or organize things in relation to this concern of mine. It's kind of like having a hobby or an interest. And that feels good. It's like, yeah, I'm working away to this thing, this goal. I'm working away. I'm doing the, I'm getting somewhere. It's good. It's engaging. So that's one thing about having a concern that hasn't been totally dwarfed. Obviously, as I keep saying, that wouldn't work at all if the concern had been totally dwarfed. You couldn't do any of that stuff. And the other side of a concern is that when I have a perception that I'm not actually as in control as much as I'd like to, and I'm not getting towards the goal and things are not working out for me, and that maybe it's going to go wrong instead of going right. And that's also entertaining. It's entertaining in a dysphoric way. It's entertaining in the sense that it's engaging. I'm totally engaged with the concern this way as well. So in the world of inconsequential concerns that I'm taking seriously because I've reduced my world to be a small world, very narrow horizons, I've got great entertainment in it, great possibility of being occupied from dawn to dusk, occupied 24/7. So we can say that's what we really want in life. Maybe not really, because on the deepest level of all, we don't want to be trapped in that kind of senseless, stupid way. So in the core of our being, we don't want that. Of course, the hell would anyone want that? But in the core of our conditioned being, we could say, we do want that. That's absolutely what we want. It's the number one requisite. We want to be occupied with our concerns 24/7. And not just 24/7, but for the rest of our lives if we can, non-stop entertainment. Which means, okay, entertainment sounds good. Everyone, likes to be entertained, I guess. What this entertainment means really is being preoccupied with petty concerns so that we can't see the immensity, the vastness, whatever you want to call it. Because if you see that, then those concerns evaporate. They dwindle. They dwindle at a tremendous rate. You'd never see anything dwindle as fast as you would see your concerns dwindling if you became aware that you're existing within an open situation, not a closed situation. Boy, do they dwindle fast. It's enough to make you dizzy. Yeah, I mean, it probably would make you dizzy. And the thing about that is, well, that could be great. It could be tremendously great, or it could be tremendously frightening, depending upon whether you're ready to let go of these concerns, let go of this non-stop preoccupation or occupation with petty concerns that we can't see to be petty. So if it so happens that we're kind of ready to let go of all that, because it is kind of crap, obviously, then the sudden appearance of an infinitely vaster universe is something else. You really can't beat it. What could beat that? Like Anthony de Mello says, we've thrown away our toys. We've exited the playpen and we're out there in the real world. That's a big step. But as Anthony de Mello also says, we don't want to throw away our toys. And when they break, we want to go running to someone who can help us fix them. The toy fixer. So we obviously aren't fed up with our toys. We aren't fed up with playing them. So what Anthony de Mello is saying is that when we go and see a psychotherapist, because Anthony de Mello was a psychotherapist along with being a Jesuit priest who had his books banned by the Vatican, which is a good thing. It's a good sign. Must have said something good. So what he noticed, as untold other psychotherapists have noticed, is that the problem isn't the broken toy. We think it is. And we will experience an awful lot of legitimate pain and suffering. Well, legitimate in the sense that it's real for us. You could say that it isn't legitimate, and then that will be true in one sense, but also to us, it really is distress. We are really distressed about having our toys, not being able to play with our toys, or something getting in the way with us playing our games. occupying ourselves 24/7 with stuff. And that our distress means that we go to see someone to help us, a psychotherapist maybe, and we want that psychotherapist to fix that, to fix our toys. But the problem isn't that the toy is broken, even though you couldn't tell me that the problem isn't that, because if my toy is broken, I am absolutely convinced that if the toy is fixed, everything will be perfect, everything will be right again. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So you're wasting your time trying to tell me otherwise. It's not going to help. But still, no matter what I might think, and it really doesn't matter what I think, it's very laughable to think that it might matter what I think, because everything I think is nonsense. Everything I think is a finite game. Everything I think will dwindle away to nothing if I ever catch sight of reality. Maybe I'll get lucky and I never will, but I might do, because reality is there and it is possible to catch sight of it. So what we could say is that the problem isn't that my toy is broken, but the problem is that I insist on playing. I'm an adult, for heaven's sake. I'm a fully grown adult. What am I doing in the playpen playing with toys all day, ignoring the actual world? What am I doing? That's the problem. And playpens don't last forever. Toys don't last forever. They will break. So this gives us a kind of way of thinking, a way of looking at things. And we can say, well, there's two types of therapy in this case. There's a type of fixing therapy, which will get us back in the playpen and reassure us. And there's a type which will say, hey, get a load of this. You're actually standing on the edge of perceiving a whole bigger world. And when you do perceive that world, your toys don't seem so interesting or so great anymore. And that kind of, well, not just kind of, it really is out of our control. The readiness that we have to let go of our toys is out of our control. If we're ready, we're ready. If we're not ready, then we're not ready. It's not something that we can wangle. There's no methods to make yourself be ready if you aren't ready, because the method is just another example of your own readiness, really. Even though we love methods, it's kind of like the whole world of spiritual methods to get us to this state where we're ready to let go of the toys, our concerns, which we fill our days with. But of course, that's really because we're not really ready, but we'd like to think we're ready. So that's the twist there, and that's, I don't know, that's mostly the case in the so-called spiritual sphere, that we love talking about it because we think we're ready to let go of that stuff, but we're not at all ready to let go of that stuff. So that's another kind of angle on it, twist on it. That's another nuance. But there's nothing we can do about it. As one meditation teacher, I can't remember his name, as usual, my memory isn't that great when I call upon it, says, you will think about God when God's grace falls upon you to enable you to suddenly have that impulse to think about God. So it's not like I can think about God because there's a method. The only way I'm going to think about God and my thoughts are going to turn to God is if God grants me the grace to do so. It's kind of out of my hands, really. So that's the point I'm trying to make. It might be said that this way of portraying human life as being occupied 24/7 with concerns that only seem important because we're narrowing our viewpoints so very much is insulting to the dignity of what it means to be a human being, to be a person. How can we accept that? That doesn't say very much for us. But that isn't really a proper objection. We may not like it, but that doesn't mean it's not true. Chogyam Trungpa says the same thing when talks about conditioned existence or existence within the lower worlds as being determined by our style of distraction. So when we enter into the lower worlds, the finite worlds, the closed worlds, we do that because we want to be distracted all the time, non-stop distraction, whatever our style of distraction is. So in the case of what Chogyam Trungpa is talking about, he's talking about saying that the lokas, the worlds, the lower worlds, and so it could be that paranoia is our style of being continually distracted. It works very, very well, paranoia. Not really a lot of fun, but it works very, very well. And in a strange kind of way, there is some kind of pleasure in it. Not in the normal sense of pleasure, but there is something in it that we like. And then it could be greed. Seeking the good stuff, and that sounds like a pretty familiar game, doesn't it? Looking for the good stuff, finding it, grabbing it, and having it for yourself. That's a game. And we all know that's a pleasurable game. Everyone likes doing that. That happens to be the game that our culture has settled upon, that particular game, predominantly anyway. And they are rather, without going through all of the worlds, they're all different styles of distraction. So what Chogyam Trungpa is saying that, yeah, basically we're hiding out. We want to hide from reality. And that's fine because that's what we do. We want to live in a closed world where we never have to understand anything in any other way. And we can't really do that, but we can have beliefs. We can believe. Any belief always relates to a closed world because the very term belief, I believe, it's putting the rubber stamp. That's it. There's nothing else. If I believe in X, there is no Y because X is it. You don't look any further than X. I believe in X. So all belief is due to the absolute desire we want to have it to live in a closed situation, a situation that will never change, and a situation which our interests and concerns are always petty ones because they're all relative to the fact that we've actually shut our minds down, or shut our consciousness down rather. And as a final note, talking about these concerns which seem so damn important and which we can get excited about in a positive or negative way, a euphoric or dysphoric way, talking about these concerns which get dwarfed by the immensity, if we happen to catch a glimpse of the immensity, the open situation basically, well, chief amongst them is the self. So the self is this precious concern that we want to hang on to at any costs, which means absolutely that we must never become aware that the universe we're living in is an open universe. Okay, thanks for watching.